Instagram. Happy Friday and welcome to the Trish Lynn Show. We will not tell you how many wrong buttons I just pushed to try and get on here live. So yeah, there's that. Always fun when you're hitting all of the wrong buttons. Today we have Leslie coming on and the emotional burnout cycle. So this is going to be such a good conversation because I am feeling it. Like right now, I am in it. So Leslie, hi, welcome. Thank you for coming on the Trish Lynn Show. I am so excited to have this conversation because one, I am feeling it right now. So this is going to be so good, not only for me, but for everyone who joins us in the show live or on the replay. Yeah, I would love for you to introduce yourself. Let us know a little bit about you, and then we can jump in.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm excited because I have to admit I did panic when I looked at the event. It said 10. I said, "Oh my gosh, I hope I didn't like mess up," because I truly was looking forward to this conversation with you. So hello everybody. Thank you so much for popping in live. I'm excited. Trish is a new connection for me and I'm really excited to talk to her today. I'm Leslie Gaddad. I'm a self-care strategist. I work primarily with female entrepreneurs who are service providers in the health and wellness space. And what I do is I provide systems to help turn clarity and, the stress and overwhelm into clarity and calm so that you are showing up for life's important moments, at a really calm state of mind. You're more in gratitude and joy, all of the amazing emotions that go along with that. I'm also a wife of over 28 years, 20 years. It has not been easy. However, it's definitely, it has its challenges, but, one day at a time. We're living here in beautiful Playa del Carmen, Mexico right now. We're here for a few months. And
So jealous.
yeah, it's so gorgeous outside right now. I have this beautiful window and I can just see I've got a coconut tree right there and I've got some beautiful flowers, lots of butterflies and birds and squirrels and cats and dogs everywhere. I just get to see life going on around. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
So jealous right now. One, for those of you who don't know, I say this all the time. I belong on a beach. I am a tropical girl and I live in Canada and I don't belong here in Canada, but my kids are here, so I'm here. If I could pack up and move today, I would be gone and on a beach. Give me an island, and oh man, I would be the happiest girl alive. So I love that. Also jealous of the 28 years. Obviously my story is a little different and I didn't get to experience that, but I'm still young and there's still time. So
Absolutely. And you don't have to settle just because you feel like you're at a specific timeline in your life that you have to like jump right into things. I always feel like, you want to make sure that your partner really supports you and that you support your partner. But again, 28 years doesn't mean it's been 28 years of bliss. There have been ups and downs, but and also just to say, just shout out to you. I was born in the States, but I was raised in Toronto.
okay.
So I'm a Canadian at heart. Love Canada. Haven't been there in a while. Yeah, I'm like you. We've been chasing the sun pretty much since we got married. And yeah, love the warm weather.
I
So
love
yeah.
that. Yeah, I'm about an hour east of Toronto, so
Okay.
that's awesome. Okay, so let's dive in to this topic because I'm going to give you some real life examples from the past week to share and be able to give support to our audience who might be feeling the same thing. So, the emotional burnout cycle. Where do you want to start?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to say this to me is such a huge conversation that needs to be had because I know a lot of people look at burnout as from the professional side of things, and yes, that can be a part of it. But I experienced emotional burnout, and it's why I really and recently, and why I started talking about it more openly because it really sidelined me. It felt like it was out of the blue when I knew it wasn't. When I finally started going back and looking at the clues, I'm always one to look in the past for the clues. I'm not afraid to look back. But I found that I was because I had lost a family member. And I've always been the strong one. I've always been the person in the family that everyone comes to when they're looking for advice, when they're looking for support, when they want someone to mediate an issue that's going on. And I've always been that person. So I stepped up to, again, my mom, in her 80s, she'd lost her eldest son the year before, and then not even a year later, she lost her youngest son. And I stepped up to the plate to be that strong one for her. And then, of course, I have one remaining brother, so I was supporting both of them and being the strong one, not really finding the time to grieve myself because I felt like I just had to be the strong one. As well, my husband was going through some things, so here I was trying to support everybody else, and my emotions, everything else, took a back seat. Not a self-care person, and I always believe in starting my day right, making sure that I take care of myself throughout my day. But I was starting to really neglect parts of my self-care. And a lot of that was because I was really emotionally investing so much of my time and energy into everyone else. I have a mom who's pretty much been that glass half empty person, that mentality my whole life. And so going through this, a lot of her, she was thinking about her life and feeling like she was to blame for what happened. I was taking on everything, absorbing it. And I don't know if any of your listeners can relate to this, but I know for me, I was absorbing her negativity, her feelings. I was really taking it on as if a burden. I was supposed to carry that burden because I was the strong one. I was the one that she was, leaning on. And that took a toll. And so I talk about four stages over the emotional overinvestment. Um, if you can relate to this, which I'm pretty sure that you can, being that person who is that person that people turn to for support because you're the strong one. You're always been there. You've been that go-to person. So, and you're deeply empathetic. You really care about helping other people, but that can lead to like emotionally and over investing your time and energy because that's the person you are. And then the emotional depletion where it constantly is taking that toll on you, and you start to feel like your energy is dropping because you're putting all that time in. And so you end up putting in so much time that you start feeling drained and you're increasingly irritable and you are frustrated a lot of the time for things that typically probably wouldn't frustrate you, even the people in your life. And then the third stage is emotional exhaustion, where you really have gone really deep and you're persistently draining your time and your energy and because you're focusing it all on other people. But then what I found is that I started becoming detached from my relationships. With my husband, I became emotionally numb. So things that I would be that glass half full person or that empathetic person, it was like I didn't care because I was like I just had enough. And the last part was emotional breakdown, which was full on burnout. And this is where I found myself really at that place where I was having the frequent breakdowns in a way where I started to freak out a little bit. I tried to cry, by the way. This is something I know it could be frequent crying spells, but I couldn't cry even if my life depended on it. I thought I need some release, and I tried to cry, but I couldn't because I was just so emotionally drained, exhausted, and I knew that there was I knew I needed to ask for help, but when you get to that stage, you're like, well, I'm that go-to person. I'm the person people lean on. So what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
And you get into that. So I really started focusing on talking a lot about that. I did a master class on it last night because I really feel it's so important that people recognize that burnout comes in many different forms, but when it comes to that emotional space, whether it's the people in your life, like your personal relationships or your professional relationships, when you are expending so much time and energy, it can really, really drain you if you don't take care of yourself.
I'm going to go out on a limb right now and say I'm on the verge of emotional burnout in my personal life and my business because I have been putting so much into it, especially in the last month, into the brand that I am building. And, I have so much empathy for the women that I'm supporting, the space that I am holding. And in the personal development world, I know how I am and I know I absorb everyone else's energy, their feelings, their emotions. So I very often have to stop and ask myself, is this my emotion or is this theirs? Because a lot of the time it's not even my emotion. I'm just absorbing it. And I'm really big, like, I know a lot about my own human design. So I take everyone else's emotions and I amplify it, right? And that's what I've started recognizing, more so in the last week, that I am drained right now. I am emotionally drained. Physically and mentally, I can keep going, but emotionally, I had to go to the vet this morning to get insulin for my dog. And as I walked in, there's a family walking in before me. And based on how they were, I very quickly triggered that they're about to go put both of their old little dogs down. And I just started crying. It was that release of, oh my gosh, I'm going to start now. I have been holding on to so much that the littlest thing just set me off. But
Mhm.
it felt really good. I got back in my car. Thank God I didn't have my makeup on yet, because that would have not been fun trying to drive home with my eyes burning from mascara. Um, but yeah, that kind of just made me realize, hey, I need to step back and take a break.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, especially when you are that person too that really cares deeply, that we also care deeply about even strangers,
Yeah,
people we don't even, when we went into there and, I really feel for you. I had a cat years and years ago that I had to give insulin shots to, so I can understand that whole process. But then to walk in and you're going through something emotionally right now with your business and your personal life, and then having to walk into a situation where you're like, oh my gosh, I can just feel, the energy and I feel for them, and just having to have that release. It was good for you to have that release, but yeah, you still felt deeply empathetic towards them. And there's just that caring nature. And that's where I was saying that it's so important to recognize if you're that person that is the go-to person. One of the things I know as a go-to person with my family, I used to have a hard time to say no
yeah,
with them because they were always looking to me to mediate things. And it did come to a head, I remember years ago, and I had finally had enough with one particular series of messages and calls. And I basically just called everyone out and I said, look, so and so's saying this, so and so's saying that, this person's saying this. You guys deal with it
yep,
because I can't, it's not my thing, it's
yep,
yours. You have to deal with this. But yeah, it can be really incredibly difficult. And then especially too, client wise, being able to be that person to say, okay, I'm not detaching from my feelings for you, but I'm not allowing them to stick as
yeah,
my own. That's the big test. And that's what I learned over, like, it took an 8-month period. It really kept on. And I was looking at it from a different way. I was looking at it as, I thought it was professional burnout because, of my business, it's ramping things up. I wasn't working overly hard, but I thought, well, maybe it is from that. So that's why I was looking for the clues and finally recognize, oh my gosh, this is what's been going on. This is what I've been
yeah,
doing. And had to take steps back to protect
yeah,
myself and in my energy and having what I call time boundaries for those relationships because you can only give
yeah,
so much from an empty cup before it becomes that place where, like you said, you're approaching it. I've been there to emotional burnout, and just knowing that it's not a fun place to be. It's time to really
yeah.
take back your life.
Well, that's it. And like as an entrepreneur, your life and your business are intertwined. If you're not taking care of yourself, you're not going to be showing up in your business. And for that's why I just took a step back, the last couple of days. I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, I know what I need to do. Now I need to actually start doing it, because that's the next hardest step, is to actually start doing. We know what we need to do, but we don't do it, right?
Mhm.
So focusing on that, my assistant and I, we are holding each other accountable to get back into our yoga practice, something that is so simple, but again, I've been neglecting.
Yeah, it is easy to neglect ourselves because, especially when it comes to business too, if you're like building something new or you're expanding on something, maybe you're hiring people, all of that all of a sudden starts to wipe out the other things. Like you might, one of the things I always say is put self-care on your calendar first because then
Yeah.
you'll see it on your calendar. You're prioritizing yourself, but then you have to hold yourself accountable to
Yes.
it because it's sitting there staring you in the face in black and white. But unless you actually take action on it, like you do for your appointments and everything else, it's just going to be another thing that you added.
Yeah.
And so it can be really difficult for people in the beginning to put self-care into their daily routine. But once it becomes habit, it's you find yourself just
Yeah.
doing it. You know, I've been doing journaling and not as much journaling as I used to,
Yeah.
but meditation every morning. I've been doing that now for 5 years. You know, I get out and walk every day. I do mindfulness walking, which is really just about paying attention to your present moment awareness, to your surroundings. There's so much that we miss, especially when we're walking or we're driving. You can become so engrossed in just the actual destination that you forget like what's happening when you're going to that destination. So just I realize that self-care has to be on the calendar first. It has to be where you're prioritizing yourself. Otherwise, you know, and this goes for men too. This isn't
Yeah.
just for women.
Yeah.
More and more men now are realizing that if they want quality of life, they actually have to start taking care of themselves
Yes.
and they have to start asking for help, which is a really big deal.
Yeah.
And but the thing is, what I've found in conversations with men is that the difficulty comes to being able to say, I'm going to get rid of the stigma of asking for help as a weakness because I'm a man. And instead say asking for help is a strength because it makes me show up as a better person
Yes.
and I can support the people in my life better. That's what women understand. And that's why I want men to understand that too. And I know I have a friend of mine who's watching this today. And he's also saying, that, I've had conversations with him and he understands the importance of, healthcare, but I also wanted to understand that it applies to him too,
Yeah.
because, he's a good person and he has a great family and to be able to like support them as a whole human being, take care of him as well.
Yeah.
And loving, we've got someone on
I know.
here
I
who's
was
also,
just reading the questions at the same time. So, HeartQuest Coaching has said emotional brain training has helped me manage this. I ask myself these three questions multiple times a day. How do I feel? What do I need? How can I support myself? And I love that. I have really been starting to tap back into all of those questions because one, I've been feeling on the verge of burnout. And I know when I'm getting exhausted that I have to pause and I have to come back to what I know to be doing, and I've just neglected it. So, as simple as adding my meditation practice back in every day. And I do. I'm like, okay, I'm taking this half hour to do what I need to do for me. And if someone asks, I'm working because
Mhm.
it is my job to take care of myself first and foremost so that I can support my clients in the best way possible. Um, so that's it. Asking how I feel, what do I need, and how can I support myself are three huge questions. I love that because I think it's something I'm going to actually pin those questions into the caption when we are done. Because that is something that is such a big piece that we forget to do. We forget to actually check in with ourselves and where we are at and how we are feeling and what do we need to do about it.
Yeah. I even go so far as to add an additional question. How does this serve me for like serve my greater good? Because a lot of the time we take on things that we say yes to. This is one of the things I really truly believe about our calendar is that it can either be our friend or it can be our foe. And that comes down to learning how to say yes to the right things. In other words, you're saying no to something, but you're saying yes to something that really serves you. So when you're asking, how do I feel? What do I need? How can I support myself? You can also then, further ask, like, how does this support, like, how does this thing that I'm doing or saying yes to, how is it supporting me? Or how is it going to support me? Is it going to support me? Does it serve my greater good? Because I remember very way back in the day in my early entrepreneurship journey, I was saying yes to everything, putting everything on my calendar, thinking I had to do every task every single day. And all that did was have me in busy work all the time and not really moving the needle. I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but I was saying yes to every challenge. Some of them were 30-day challenges, putting on workshops on my calendar, or webinars, and then looking at my calendar saying, okay, how am I supposed to do all
Yeah.
of this and have a business at the same time? And that was so overwhelming and stressful, made me anxious, and realizing that the only way for me to have true time freedom, which I believe true time freedom comes from how you structure your day.
Yes.
I had to learn to how to say yes to the right things, but also having clarity on what my vision was so that I could structure out my days and my weeks and my months,
Yeah.
so that they supported that.
Yeah, I can feel that in the overwhelm and saying yes. I just recently started having Mel from You Are Your Marketing. She was our very first episode here, do PR work for me, and it was every day I'm getting podcasts to go on. And at first, I was saying yes to. I mean, I'm still saying yes to all of them, but I'm scheduling them as if I don't have my kids, I'm on podcasts, I'm working like. And that is where my overwhelm is coming in and my burnout, because there's so many things I want to do. So now I have a checklist here somewhere. Every day I create a checklist. I know the minimum that has to get done because there are still pieces that need to go out to move that needle forward. But then there's other pieces. And then I prioritize what has to get done. And, even just clicking that little checkbox feels really good. And if something doesn't get done, I'm not down on myself. I've also started, spreading out these podcasts, because I'm not going on these podcasts talking about light topics. I'm going on and I'm talking about toxic relationships and narcissistic abuse and sharing my story, which is heavy and emotionally heavy. So starting to even recognize those pieces for myself. And I don't want to say the damage that it's causing, because it's not causing damage per se, but it is emotionally draining me, and
Mhm.
being able to recognize that and say no to things that I know I don't have the emotional capacity to even show up for has been so beneficial just for myself, even in the last couple days, because it took me the last couple days to realize, oh my gosh, the littlest thing just set me off. Why? This shouldn't have set me off. It's put me into this mindset. I'm like, okay, I have to take a step back and focus on me right now, because this isn't how I want to be showing up.
Yeah, absolutely. And having children, I can imagine that they're watching everything that you do. So if you want your children to be healthy, you have to lead by example.
Yeah.
And that by showing them that, okay, I'm taking time, I'm making sure that I'm taking care of me the best I can, so I show up for you the best I can. And then having those conversations even with your children to say, this is why self-care is important, even for yourself, taking those moments for yourself, even encouraging your children to journal out their thoughts, being able to like get it out of their brain, that mental picture, and having something to look at, then being able to even bring it to you to discuss will help them to lead more healthier lifestyles. I feel like having that conversation, self-care conversation in the home is really going to benefit families, because then you're teaching your children how to go out into the world, better whole human beings.
Yeah.
That's like one of my goals, is really like my mission for the world, is for self-care really to become that household conversation that families talk about. If it's a conversation around the dinner table, if they do like a weekly chat with the family and just talk about life in general, and just talk about those things so that they are taking care of themselves, so that they have whole, wonderful, joyful, filled lifestyles. That's what my hope is.
Yeah. I love that. It was recently this week, and I told my two youngest, and I apologized to them, because I'm like, I'm overwhelmed right now. I'm overstimulated. I just need a mom break. Like, we need that time to really come back to. And I love my kids, don't get me wrong, but it's always one of them, all spread out in increments, wanting something, and it's mom, 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 mom. And I'm like, mom needs a minute. Like, just give me a minute, because it's all of, our personal pieces that we're trying to keep up with and, be the best parent we can be on top of growing a business and growing a brand. And it gets to you. If you don't take that time for you, it will catch up with you and it will get to you. So, I've prioritized taking off next week to spend with them their last week before school starts. I have my content ready to go out because my business, yes, still needs to keep moving forward and building that momentum on social media. I'm not just taking a break, but I am planning ahead. And I know that this is the space that I need to recoup my energy so that when school starts and they are back in, I can go back at it full force, but refreshed.
Yeah. I love that. And one of the things I loved about what you said was that you talked about how when you talk to your kids, you said, I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed. You made it about you and not about them. That's key, because if they hear like, you're stressing me out, you're overwhelming me, then they feel like, oh, I can't go to mommy. Like I'm doing something bad. I'm wrong. And instead you made it about you so that they could understand like, oh, mom needs some downtime for herself so she can show up for us. That is another way that you're teaching your kids to the languaging. It really does make a difference.
Because most of the, well, for anyone, it's not that outside person, it's not that outside source. It is you and how you are perceiving those events. So sometimes I will, and I have said to them, you guys are driving me nuts. But, it's in that, what they are doing. And I will always apologize after, because it's not per se them, but it's how I am perceiving what it is they are doing, because I'm already in that overstimulated, overwhelmed state. And as women and as mothers, we get there, I find, a lot quicker because we are the relied on parent. I have very often asked my kids, I'm like, do you do this to your dad? No. Then why are you doing it to me, right? But we are the go-to parents because we are the safe space. We are that calm. We are the nurturer, and that is our role. So it's being able to recognize where we are at that plays the biggest role in our lives, our businesses, and our children's lives.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and it's funny that you say that, because even my brother, he had told me, like, when they were having children, that he felt that it was a woman's position to raise the children. And we grew up in a single family home, so like it was just our mom, and that's all he saw. That's all he learned, was that women take care of the children. So that's just like his learning experience. But I mean, even in families where there's both parents, usually it's the mom that's stepping in for certain things, and it's usually the kids that are turning to mom for certain things. I think the more adventurous, it might be like that adventure side, that curiosity side, going out into the world and trying to figure things out, they might go to dad, if they have both parents. And then, the nurturing, the caring, I need advice, I need your support, they're going to go to mom.
Yeah.
That's just how I've seen it work. But it can be, if both parents really embrace this as, we're both in this together, and we can teach our children that both parents are the ones that you can lean on and come to support, whether it's out of curiosity, adventure, wanting to figure out what's next for life, or whether you're looking for nurturing, you're looking for advice, you're looking for someone to support you. You can come to either of us. That's what I would think would be such a great family dynamic. And I've seen families like that.
Yep. In my situation, I know that's not going to happen, but it would be nice. I know if they want to go out on their dirt bikes, they're going to go to dad. They're not going to come to me. But for any other piece of advice, my son will. My oldest called me last night, and we sat on the phone for 20 minutes because he was bored. I'm like, okay. I'm like, I would like to watch a movie now. I'm sitting here waiting to hit play. Can I get off the phone? well, I just don't know what to do. I'm like, child, you're at your dad's. Why don't you go see what dad's doing? What's your brother doing? What's your sister doing? Like, well, but he just wanted to sit on the phone. And I gave him that time to sit on the phone. Because sometimes it's also tapping into what they are needing and being there for them.
I love
But,
that. How old is it?
um, 8, 11, and 15.
8, 11, 15. Okay, wow.
So it's been good. I know that was a little off topic from our original conversation, but it, I think life can be stressful for everyone, even your children, and they can still face that emotional burnout and hit that wall of overwhelm and overstimulation. So it's been good to be able to share my experiences with them and the pieces that I know I need to implement. I mean, I won't tell my boys to meditate because they'll laugh at me, but for them, it's get outside and play, right? It's a different way of clearing your head and moving that energy.
Absolutely, 100%. Like even with my brothers, when we were growing up, most of the time we were outside. Like I come from a generation where we were playing outside all the time.
Right?
So we would get up, we'd have, like especially on the weekends, we get up, we'd have our breakfast, and we're outside.
Yeah.
The next time someone would see us would be at lunchtime, and then we'd be back outside. And the next time she'd see us would be at dinner time. And that was just the way of life.
Yeah.
We were finding things to do. If we would go up to my grandfather's, which he lived in the country up just north of Toronto, we would end up fishing or swimming or going on the boat, whatever that looks like. If we were finding things to do outside or, looking at nature. One of the things that we used to love to do, and I don't recommend that people do this, and it's not a horrible thing, but we would go for walks when we were in the country. So we'd be going for walks and we knew certain people had amazing vegetable gardens and we would go in and grab like carrots or something out of their garden, and we were always like huge like fanatics on vegetables growing up. So that I don't know where that came from, because I know a lot of people say parents say their kids, they don't eat their vegetables, but we were in love with everything. So we were tomatoes, or we would grab a potato, or even carrots, and we never thought that we were doing anything wrong, because it just felt, I don't know, it just
Yeah.
felt right. um, Kids, you don't think of the consequences, like, well, you
No.
shouldn't be going to someone's garden and taking that. But what I loved about that is that we were always outside, we were together, we were doing something, we were bonding, and I have such great memories of when I was younger. And amidst a lot of the trauma that I went through, I have a lot of great memories of spending time with my brothers outside.
But it's getting out into nature is such a calming and grounding experience that as kids you don't even know you're doing. Then as adults you're like, okay, I need to get grounded. I need to get outside because it's not a natural. I don't know where the shift happens, but as a kid I was outside from dawn till dusk, like all the time. And now it's like, shit, I've been sitting in my room for the last 2 hours. I need to go outside for a bit and just take that moment, right? Um, so that's, I mean, for me, that's a calming piece and a grounding piece is just getting outside. I would love to ask if you have any tips for anyone who is experiencing emotional burnout or on the verge of emotional burnout, a takeaway that they can take from this show, from this episode with them and actually implement to start seeing, that shift and coming back to obviously the self-care piece.
Yeah. So first of all, I would say look at your calendar. I mean, we all use calendars, whether it's a written one or we have the digital. Most people have like a Google Calendar or some form of digital calendar. Look at your calendar and see what's on there, because most of the time we say yes to things and we put it on our calendar without even thinking about it, or thinking about what's on your calendar and then the things that you didn't put on your calendar that you want to do. Is that all going to fit into your day, and is it going to make you feel good about it? Because again, it's like, how do I feel? What do I need? How can I support myself? And then does this even really serve my greater good? So what I would say is learning how to set boundaries that are healthy around your time. So learning to structure your day in a way that you're not overwhelming yourself and stressing yourself beyond what you can really take on emotionally, mentally, physically. I mean, there's a lot of things that we think that we can do in a day. I talk a lot about knowing your energy. So, being if you're a sprinter or a marathoner, meaning if you're someone who can do things in like short bursts, but you get things done in short bursts of time, so like 60 minutes and you need breaks. Whereas a marathoner might be someone who can work longer periods, like 2 hours, 3 hours, and take 15, 20-minute break. Just knowing your energy is really important. Secondly, learning the power of no as a complete sentence. Okay, it is a complete sentence. Uh, Learning how not to feel guilty about saying it. And if no doesn't feel right, maybe you say not right now. So it's just becoming clear on, like you were saying, you've been invited to be on a lot of podcasts. So how do you fit that into your time, the time that you have available? And you look at your calendar and you figure out what works best for you. So and bringing that back to those people and saying, this is where I see it fits in. Well, is this flexible timeline for you? Because you have to take care of you.
I just want
Also,
to pause at that no for 1 second, because when you've been in a toxic relationship, you are used to over explaining yourself and over explaining why you say the things you say. And no is a very powerful answer, and you do not owe anyone an explanation. It was the hardest thing for me to say, but when when I first left, like emotionally, I was a mess. My anxiety was through the roof, and being able to just say no became a boundary for myself, because I needed to have everyone else's drama away. I have my own stuff happening. I don't need yours. So, full stop, end the conversation. I don't want to talk about this. I don't owe an explanation why, because how I'm feeling is really no one else's business but my own. So, no is very powerful, and you do not ever owe anyone an explanation.
yeah, absolutely. And again, like I said, even the three little words I call them not right now, knows second cousin. But it's really about just saying, like it doesn't fit right. It's something I really want to do or something I want to experience, but it doesn't fit in my calendar right now. And then being solution focused by saying, okay, when could I do it? Okay, does this work for you? I think those are two powerful things that you can do. Communication is so important. So being open, honest, even vulnerable about what you're going through, what you're feeling, especially like you said with your kids. You told them like I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed, I need some time for me. So you're making it about yourself and not about them, and that helps people to understand it a little bit better. That they become less defensive as if they're to fault. Having those real check-ins with yourself. Like again, I loved what HeartQuest coaching put in about the questions about like what do I feel,
Yeah.
how how to feel, what do I need, and what can I do to support myself. I think those are really important to check in with yourself, especially if you're in a stage of feeling emotionally drained,
Yes.
fatigued, irritable, frustrated, maybe over things that don't normally frustrate you, but you're finding yourself quick triggered. Also, asking for help. I think a lot of people looked at asking for help, myself included, way back in the day. I used to think that asking for help was a sign of weakness because that meant that I had to put myself out there, that people would judge me for what I was asking for help around. Shouldn't you know the answer? Feeling like an imposter, or just all of those things.
Yeah.
The talk that comes with it. So, but I learned quickly that asking for help is such a superpower because it opens you up to someone else's
Yes.
perspective that you might not have that can actually put you on the
Yeah.
path to, you know, to that greater joy that you were looking for, but you couldn't figure the way out yourself because you're in the midst of it. But someone else can say, hey, what I was thinking, you're like, oh my gosh, that's exactly
One
what I need. And that,
thing one thing I say a lot on my socials and to my clients is sometimes you are so close to the problem, you can't see the problem. So having that outside perspective come in can be the exact piece of clarity you need to keep you moving on that forward momentum.
Absolutely, 100%. I totally agree with that. And then the last thing would be community, making sure that you build community. I feel that community is one of our strongest self-care tools that we have in our toolbox because it helps you to feel like you're not alone on an island all by yourself. You can be in a community of people who understand what you're feeling. They may not have gone through the same experience, or they may not be going through the same experience, but they're empathetic because they're in the community with you. They understand that there's a lot of these things that happen in life, and they're willing to support you from there. They're not judging you. Also, the other part of community is that tribe, that circle of people that are closest to you, that know you, they understand you. You feel seen, heard, and understood because you've built a relationship with them. I truly believe that community is so powerful because then you don't have to go it alone. You understand, I don't have to go it alone. I have people I can lean on. I can get that support I need, that asking for help piece. Someone's going to say something and you're going to be like, oh my gosh. Someone else might say something and you're going to say, oh my gosh, that's amazing too. That puts you up to so much more and can help you too, especially if you're stuck in trying to make a decision. Someone else can say something and it's like, oh, that's what you did? That sounds interesting. Let me try that because I'm proud of it and maybe that will work for me.
Yeah.
So those are things that I would leave our listeners with for sure.
Perfect. I love that. Community is so important. And it's finding that community that fits for you and works with you and you feel supported in. It's such a big piece. It's community has gotten me to be able to be through the pieces that I've gone through. So I truly respect that, and anyone who is open to finding those communities that support them. If you're not sure where to go, send us a message or drop it in the comments because we can lead you in the right direction. Or, I mean, I have my own support community for women who have been in toxic relationships. I don't know if you have your community, but we can lead you on where to go if you are needing that support.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't have an actual Facebook group or any type of community, but I belong to a lot of great communities and can steer you in a direction wherever that you're looking for. But I do want to say, first of all, thank you to everyone who's come on and watched us live, and those of you who are watching it back. I hope you found value today. I want to thank you, Trish, for inviting me to have this conversation with you today. It's been, I always love talking about stuff like this. Like I said, I experienced this recently. It's really spurred me on to talk about it more. I'm now in a 24-week series around professional burnout, going live on LinkedIn every Wednesday and on my YouTube channel. And it's just really about bringing in different perspectives. I've been bringing in guests, experts around different areas, as well as, just my own stories and other stories of women that I've talked to about their own experiences around burnout. I really feel like I don't want burnout to become such a normalized state of being that people become sensitized to it. Rather, people start talking about it more. How can we not only do the things to support ourselves, but how can we support other people so that they can get through it easier and they don't feel alone?
While we live in a hustle culture, right? And we don't stop to think about the emotional impact. So being able to bring awareness to this, and anyone who's listening again can say, oh shit, that's me, and recognize it, it's going to be very beneficial. So thank you so much for being here. I will be dropping your information in the caption as well as these questions because I find them so valuable. And if anyone would like to reach out to Leslie, you can drop her a message on Instagram.
Thank you so much, Trish. I appreciate you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.